All right, John, I want our team to roll right now on brand new video just in of these interceptions that occurred over Doha, obviously just a short time ago. There's some sound with this video. Let's stop and listen and watch what just happened a short time ago. Clear interceptions lighting up the night sky there. Let's go back to Jennifer Griffin. She's got the latest from the Pentagon on that new video for us. Jennifer?
Well, Sandra, we can report from senior U.S. defense officials that the U.S. military was involved in intercepting those ballistic missiles that were targeting Al Udeid air base in Qatar. It's not clear whether the Qataris also used their own air defense systems that might have helped with the interceptions. But we do know that the U.S. has THAAD missile defense systems as well as Patriot missile defense that are normally manned by about 100 U.S. soldiers, each of those. So they were very effective tonight in protecting Al Udeid. There are no reports of any American casualties or deaths as a result of these missiles. None of them landed at the base, so no damage to report. But very dramatic video, as you just showed us over the skies of Qatar just now. It seems as though this initial strike on Qatar and the Al Udeid base is over for now. It's not clear whether Iran will strike again in a second wave, but this wave is over for now, we're told. What we also can report is that U.S. defense officials have not seen, the Pentagon has not seen any attacks by Iran on any other U.S. bases across the Middle East, despite the high alert warnings, the air defense sirens that have gone off from Iraq to Kuwait to Bahrain and UAE. The airspace has been closed over Bahrain, UAE, and other countries protectively to commercial traffic because of the strike tonight on Qatar. But again, no injuries, no Americans killed or injured. And my suspicion at this point, Sandra, if there are not more waves of attacks and if no U.S. Service members or American citizens are killed, I think all sides in this, whether it's Iran, the United States, or Israel, will soon be looking for a way out so that this does not escalate further. None of the players involved want this to escalate further. We've heard that from the White House. We've heard that from the president. The president was very clear that this mission this weekend was to take out Iran's nuclear sites, those 3 sites that were very important to Iran's nuclear program. So far, the bomb damage assessment, while not complete, indicates that there was significant damage, if not destruction, at those 3 sites. The president has said so repeatedly in Truth Social posts. The Pentagon is looking now to be able to confirm all of that. But right now, we can say with authority that there were no other strikes on U.S. bases across the Middle East, just the 6 missiles, ballistic missiles fired from Iran in response to this weekend's U.S. strikes, and they were all intercepted by U.S. air defense over Qatar this evening.
You know, Jennifer, we were talking about this idea that Iran increasingly finds itself alone. I think that idea has been reinforced with this statement from Saudi Arabia, which reads, "The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses its condemnation and denunciation in the strongest terms possible the aggression launched by Iran against the brotherly state of Qatar, which constitutes a flagrant violation of international law and the principles of good neighborliness, and an entirely unacceptable act that cannot be justified under any circumstances." We heard something similar from the Qataris. Bahrain certainly is probably of the same mind. I would think Kuwait is as well. The Emirates haven't weighed in yet, but they don't have any particular fondness for Iran. I mean, this almost seems to be like the last wheezing gasp of a morally bankrupt regime.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the Saudis and the Iranians have never been close. They are extreme rivals in the region, and the Iranians really didn't have a lot of allies in the region. They are Shia Muslims, as you know, and they had relied on proxy forces in countries that they had used in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, to basically target Israel and to target Americans over the years, really for the last 40 years, 40 plus years. So those proxies have pretty well been taken out by a combination of Israeli strikes as well as American strikes in Yemen. Those proxies have been mighty quiet since this all began 12 days ago. So I think Iran is increasingly isolated. I think the regime is increasingly fragile. The question is whether the Iranian people are going to be able to overthrow the regime. The regime would like to probably preserve itself. They needed to respond to this weekend's airstrikes by the U.S. military. They could not let that go unanswered. This answer came rather quickly with a rather feeble response, frankly, with yes, ballistic missiles, but ballistic missiles that were in a number that could be intercepted by air defenses. Given the short flying time from Iran to Qatar, I mean, you're talking about a matter of minutes in the air. If they wanted to overwhelm the air defense systems in Qatar at U.S. bases across the Gulf states, they could do so. They have thousands of short-range missiles. They have cruise missiles. And as much as the Israelis have been very successful in taking out probably 2/3 of their long-range ballistic missile launchers, those mobile launchers that are very hard to take out, but they managed to do so, they still have a lot of short-range missiles. So if they had wanted to send swarming drones as well as missiles, you would have seen a very different kind of attack tonight on Al Udeid. This was a limited strike. It was very easily intercepted, and yet it provided we're seeing the footage that the Iranian government is putting out now of the launches of the ballistic missiles, and they look very dramatic, and that will be for domestic consumption for the Iranian people to suggest that the regime is still in charge. But I think what you're going to see in the coming days, if no Americans are killed in these strikes, and so far none have been, I think you're going to see the U.S., the Israelis, and the Iranians, I think with the help of the Qataris, who have served a mediating role in the past 2 years, a very significant mediating role, I think you're going to see a lot of pressure to get back to the negotiating table.
Well, General Teichert, as he was saying a little while ago, thought that maybe this was Iran looking for an off-ramp. So we'll see if that happens.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.